If you are into marketing, you must be visualizing your data on a regular basis. And we all know that two of the most common tools, the commonly used tools that we put to use in order to visualize our data are Looker Studio and Google Sheets. And we often spend a lot of time trying to find out newer and better ways of visualizing the data. But let's be honest, when was the last time we were really happy with the visualization that we had, even after all the customization in the world that we tried out? I'm not saying they're not good. I mean, there can be a lot of very powerful visualizations that you can create, particularly with Looker Studio. But when it comes to visualizing data, there's something that I must point out, that it's not about the number of graphs, the complexity of the presentation. It's rather the very opposite. When you're presenting some data to a stakeholder, they don't care about the complexity of the analysis. They care about the interpretation of it and what it means to their business. From a marketer's perspective, nothing can be more important than this. And I'm going to show you a very neat little way. I won't say a little way. In fact, it's a pretty robust framework that I'm talking about using Python. But I'm not going to, let you run away scared. There's no reason to be scared, because I can just show you just in a couple of steps. I'm going to show you how you can actually get started with this. So this is actually a visually appealing way, which has a black background, as you can see, and this is possible because it's actually running in the form of a web application. So it's running in the browser. So this is the output. This is basically a quality score versus share of different metrics. So for instance, share of cost, share of conversion value, share of conversion, share of clicks. And I'm going to show you a dashboard that I actually created from scratch and showed you how to do that. It's actually replicating, or it's actually recreating that same thing, but in that web application format. So I'm going to show you what the final output is meant to be. So this is what it's trying to do. It's actually trying to get the data from an account, get the data of keywords, and aggregating it by their quality scores, and showing for each individual quality score how much is the share of conversions, how much is the share of conversion value, share of clicks, so on and so forth. So that's exactly what this application is trying to do, except that you don't have to go through all the manual stuff in the Google Sheets. So once it's done, all it's needed to be done by the user's perspective is that they just have to upload a CSV file, and it just needs to have the data in that specific format. These should be the columns, and once that is done, you can actually dynamically select the variables. As you can see, for y-axis you can select any of these four variables, and you can also select the second variable. So there's actually a way to dynamically select the primary and the secondary dimensions, as you can see here. That was the case with the Google Sheet as well. But in order to do that, if I had actually created a video for this particular Google Sheet as well, for creating the quality score dashboard, and you can go and check that video. You'll see how involved this process was. You had to use HLOOKUP, for instance, in order to do this, and a couple of neat little other tricks as well. And I would definitely say that once it is completed, this application looks better, and does a much better job than what would be done in Excel or Google Sheet, because that's just more manually tedious. And yeah, the very first point that I was making, that visual presentation is about simplicity. The better, I mean, if you just go through the work or read the work of, read what some of the top designers and top UX people, UI people are saying, you'll see that they're always mentioning that the key to, greatness in presentation and visualization is simplicity. And nothing can be simpler than black and white, right? So this is something that really appeals to me. You can of course customize these things as well, but Streamlit is essentially a Python framework that lets you create data applications that can be run through browsers, and these are actually shareable applications as well. You can make them shareable. In my case, I'll jump into how I've done this, and the first thing I'll say is that I've created this locally, and you'll see that it's still executing. So it's been executing this code for 1 hour 15 minutes now. So it's obviously eating into the drive space that I have, but that's okay. The reason I'm doing this locally is because my intention is not to make it shareable at this point in time. It's if I would want to share it, I would probably make a more robust and more comprehensive application. But this was primarily for the purposes of making a training video. So in order to get started with this, first you have to come to this particular tool, you can say. It's so this is essentially an application in itself. So this is called Google Colab, and you can jump into this where you can actually write Python code, and in fact some code in some of the other languages as well, which can be interpreted by this. But this was primarily meant as an online Python environment. So once you jump into this, all you need to do is just write 3 lines of code essentially. But yeah, I'll hasten to add that there's actually more than that. I'll just show that in a minute. But the first thing that you need to do is install Streamlit, and the way you do it is this exclamation mark followed by pip, and then install Streamlit, and this -q. So what each element is doing is not really important, but you do understand that you're installing Streamlit on this instance of running Google Colab. Once that is done, you'll see these executions being shown, and once that's successfully done, you'll see this green tick mark here, and then you have to run this particular code. And this essentially does nothing but fetches your IP version 4 address. So the IP address, the version 4 address, is actually fetched and returned by this piece of code, and this is going to be important in the third piece of in the third phase of this execution. But before jumping into that, you actually have to jump, and what I'm showing now, these 3 lines of code will actually remain the same no matter what particular data app you're building. That's the beauty of it. And this is of course when you're doing it locally, like I say, like I said, is the case right now. As you can see, it's executing internally on my local system, but that's fine. I mean, this is, as I said, for a training purpose, and you can also do that if you are just trying to learn something new. As long as it's not meant to be a publicly shareable application, you can do it in this way, and all it will require is just these 3 pieces of code. And before running this 3rd line of code, by the way, you have to create a file, again locally created. You can actually do it, jump into this section here, table contents and table of contents, and then you will find the section on files. You can create a folder here, a new folder, or you can directly create a new file. And once you create the new file, just rename it as app.py. You can rename it as anything really, but it's going to be a Python file, so .py makes sense. Double click it, and then you have to paste your code. Now there's actually a lot going on here. So yeah. So when I said there's only 3 lines of code, I was only half correct. So obviously, depending on what your application is going to do, you need some Python code, and that Python code is going to take care of the analysis, visualization, or whatever else that you want it to do. I have actually created a Google document where I've created where I've dumped basically the codes that are going into the app.py section, and I'll just jump into that document. So this is the one. This is the quality score dashboard that I'm just showing you right now. Let me just bold it for you. And there are a couple of other applications that I'm going to show. So I'm going to share this as well, and just do get in touch with me if you just want this piece of Google document, and you can use this and do some testing for yourself. So yeah, so sometimes the screen can hang, because obviously some execution is going on in the back end. So this is essentially it, and once you have put that Python file within the app.py, that code within the app.py file, and which, by the way, I'm not trying to explain it. There's no point in this video going into the specifics of Python code. That's not the objective of this video. It's just to get you started with this and to show you the power of web applications when you're trying to create data applications for visualization. So relying on Looker Studio, which requires a lot of manual work, and which in my opinion can look really clumsy. This definitely provides a pretty nice alternative, and I think it's only going to get started. Streamlit has been around for a while, but I think it's only now, probably in the last couple of years or so, it's really starting to gain traction. So once that app.file is ready, app.py file, you just have to run this piece of code, which is going to create your instance of this application, and you just have to wait for this URL here. Once this URL is ready, and once you're running it, by the way, when you're running it internally, you have to keep this running in order for the app to work. And this is the application link, by the way. So so as you can see here, if I just delete this and then start from scratch, so this is what it shows once you open this application. That it gives the name of the application, and then it asks you to upload a file. So once I click on browse files, I can just select the particular data set. So I've got a data set ready, and the data set is essentially the same one that's going on behind the scenes. This is the data set that I'm talking about, really. And once that is ready, I have, as you can see here, the first few rows of the data set are automatically being shown here. You can even download it from here. You can search for something within this, search for a particular column, for instance, and you can also maximize it in order to visualize it separately. So yeah, these are some of the additional functions within the data application. And then you have obviously the filtering process that I was talking about. You can slice it by individual metrics for the first and the second variables. So in this case, obviously both of them are the same, and that's why it's saying that you have to choose two different variables. And if I choose conversion value now, I'll see that it automatically creates a graph. So what this graph, as you can see, is saying is that most of the conversion value as well as the conversions are coming from keywords with the quality score of 10 and 9. I mean, that's a good thing, right? And that's what's expected from the account. So that's essentially the introduction, and I'll show you a couple of other applications that I've also run. Again, just as part of YouTube video that I wanted to create as tutorials. As you can see, this is the second one. So again, the same code. As you can see, these three codes just remain the same. It's just what's happening in the back end that's changing. And this application, by the way, just takes care of a campaign KPI. It just creates a campaign KPI dashboard, and this is the code once again within it. It's a Python code. A lot is going on within it. It's using several packages and libraries from like Streamlit, pandas. That does a lot of the data manipulation for you. Matplotlib is your plotting or is your data visualization library, and so is Seaborn. But yeah, like I said, this is not going to be a tutorial for that. I'm not getting into that. Probably do that at a later stage. But right now, it's just going to be a tutorial to help you get started with this and see the potential that it holds as an alternative visualization tool. So I will upload another data set now, which has been meant to visualize the data for KPIs. And as you can see, what this data set really holds is days, individual day of the month, then campaign, the name of the campaign, impressions, clicks, cost, CPC, conversion, CTR, conversion rate, conversion value, and ROAS. So all very, very relevant metrics, something that we probably do with work with even in our sleep as performance marketers. And then once you have this data set, it automatically creates KPI charts. So this is something you must be familiar with from Looker Studio as well, and something you can do, something you can work with even in Google Sheets. And it gives you the total cost. So it actually calculates the totals for each of these columns and also some averages. So for instance, total conversion value, it's basically creating calculating the totals across this all the values in this column, and giving you the output here in the form of a KPI chart. So it's pretty visually appealing, right? It's like I said, black against white, or white against black. It's always particularly white against black, if you ask me, is one of the most smart looking, smart in appearance kind of visualizations. So definitely gets me I don't know how you will like it, but I'm sure that many stakeholders will like it. Now we move on to the graphs that have been generated. So there are a lot of graphs that are there. So these are just two-way graphs or three-way graphs where we are looking at the cost and CPC. So these are two-way graphs actually, and we are just actually looking at them, looking at the variation of the data for these two variables across different days. So as you can see, from the 14th to so this is just the other way around. It could easily be altered, but from the 8th to the 14th, if you just look, or from the 14th to the 8th, whichever way, how is these different metrics varying with respect to another metric that's given here. So how is cost varying with respect to conversion rate? Obviously the value is much smaller compared to cost. That's why it's a straight line. It's almost looking like a straight line here, while this is a curve. But if you look at something like cost and conversion value, you'll begin to see what's happening here, and at what points are the metrics essentially reacting in certain ways. For instance, if the cost is going up, is the conversion value going up, so on and so forth. And this particular chart, for instance, actually gives you a shaded region. As you can see, this shaded region is significant. It shows essentially the maximum value, the maximum value reached for that particular date. Okay, because it's taking a sort of an average value across different campaigns. So you have multiple campaigns, right? So it's taking an average across multiple campaigns, and it's giving you the maximum and the lower limits from the different campaigns as well. So it's a pretty neat little visualization, and this actually has a lot of similarity with the violin plot. I had shared it with my data visualization master sheet or master Notion file sometime back. So violin plots are very useful. This pretty much follows that concept as well. But yeah, again, it's just the appearance of it that really sort of impresses me